Supporters of former President Donald Trump and proponents of the big lie are going around and knocking on people's doors. Why? Apparently, they're taking it upon themselves to find the fraud. They got to find the voter fraud. What is it? Hiding behind the couch? Is that why you're going to people's houses? Is it like behind the windowsill? Like what? Behind the what are you doing? What are you looking for? Well, anyway, according to a recent report from BuzzFeed, homeowners are not pleased at MAGA chuds showing up to their door, asking to see their votes and having their information. So just imagine, like, you're sitting at home, you're chilling in the living room, whatever, and some Trump supporters show up at your door and like, where were you? Did you cast this ballot? Here's all your information that I got from your voting. Did you do this? Is this you? Did you do the fraud? Did you get paid by Joe Biden in China? Tell them to get the fuck out of here. Yeah, it's like none of your business who I voted for. Like, get out of here. Now, let me give you more details about this. So these grassroots groups have taken to going around knocking on doors to try to talk to voters in different states, including New Hampshire, Arizona, Colorado, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, Utah, Nebraska, hoping to prove that Trump was a victim of voter fraud. Now, again, the fraud doesn't actually exist. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. There is a fraud actually going on. Big fraud, the greatest fraud. And the people who are out there knocking on the doors that are looking for it, they're actually the ones that have been deceived. They have been defrauded themselves. The big lie is actually one of the best examples of how a lie gets foisted on people, so much so and repeated that they actually end up believing it. And they believe it so much that they literally come to your house and knock on your door. And for example, in New Hampshire, BuzzFeed's Sarah Mims reported one exchange between a homeowner and a member of the Integrity Group who would only give his first name as Dean. So Dean, part of this voter integrity group to try to find the fraud. Now, the homeowner, she writes, right away something was up. He said later in an interview, he didn't go to answer the door, but spoke to the man through his Ring camera, pressing him on what exactly the New Hampshire Voter Integrity Group was and who they represented. Adding, Dean told the person answering the door, we took a look at the election, so we're a little concerned about what happened, so we are checking. What are you checking? Honestly, what are you checking? And that's the thing that I'm wondering. You have no authority to go and ask people questions like that. Come to their house, like, who'd you vote for? What did you do? No, you're not. Now, here's the thing, though. Like, I will volunteer that information. Yes, I voted for Joe Biden. Was he my first choice? Absolutely not. Was he better than Donald Trump? Yeah. Even as disappointed as I am in the Biden administration, and honestly, I'm not all that disappointed because I didn't expect much. I mean, and if you want more details on that, I recently spoke to Farron Cousins of Ring of Fire about Biden's first year. Again, not really impressed. But at the same time here, I'm honest about my vote, but you don't have to be. You don't have to tell people who you voted for. And that goes for Trump supporters too. If you're too embarrassed to admit that you voted for Donald Trump, that's fine. You don't have to tell people. I'm not going to ask. And you know what? You don't have Biden voters going around asking people, hey, do you vote for Donald Trump? You don't have to share that information if you don't want to. And so that's what's stupid and ridiculous about this entire thing. But anyway, this is what happened. The homeowner, a Democrat, tells him to go to hell and get off his property. Dean replies cheerfully, that'll be a nice trip. Thank you. And then adds, I'll see you there. Wait, why would you see them in hell? You're like the good Christian that's good. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, okay, well, look, a lot of this doesn't make sense, okay? And there's more. Around town that Saturday in early October, other people were knocking on doors, specific doors, people who live there year-round. They had information, and this is disturbing, They had information on the residents, their names, whether they voted, and if they did so in person or absentee. In response, 2 Waterville Valley residents called the cops, according to police reports. Mims wrote, before adding city officials are also getting calls from aggravated homeowners. In fact, Rye Town Clerk Donna Dakota said her town got an abundance of calls from concerned citizens and residents when the New Hampshire Voter Integrity Group started knocking on doors there. She advised them of their rights. They did not have to speak. They did not have to open the door. Noting that members of the group are explicitly told to not talk about any political party and never to ask who someone voted for, one resident who didn't want to give his name out of fear of retaliation explained what happened when he answered the door. One Waterville Valley resident said that's exactly what 2 people at his doorway asked him, at which point he gave them 5 seconds to leave. The canvassers cleared out, but the man said he was furious that, quote-unquote, 2 dumbasses had come calling asking about personal information. Mims reported, adding that he told her, "I was enraged. I am to this day offended at the whole notion that there was any wide-scale election fraud. I was like sputtering mad. I called the police dispatch." Explaining that he believes there's more to the business just asking about 2020, he continued, "Once you start knocking on people's doors and telling them that you're part of a volunteer organization trying to hunt out voter fraud, you got to imagine that part of it. They're looking for disciples." Now that's interesting. So they're looking for people to recruit. That's a possibility, to come out and to canvass with them. Now, another homeowner from Waterville Valley who gave her name as Whitney also said this. She said the encounter just felt stranger as the conversation went on. I just assumed that by the end of the conversation, they were looking to prove voter fraud in favor of Trump. Primarily because who else is talking about an election that's way over? Yeah, look, other than like news people like me that are debunking the nonsense, no normal person is talking about, oh, did you see the mass voter fraud? No, they're trying to figure out like, hey, gas is up, inflation is going on. How am I going to do this? The student loans are restarting soon. The Biden administration has decided, not to cancel student loans, any amount of student loans, and to let payment continue, even though we are facing massive inflation, gas prices, etc., COVID-19, the Omicron variant, all this stuff that's happening. I got to figure out that. I'm not worried about the 2020 election. I'm not worried about any of that. And yet those people are, because they're focused on this. So now the other thing is, of course, is what's interesting that I want to point out is they only want to prove voter fraud happened if it helped Joe Biden. Now, on this show, I talked about many different instances that voter fraud actually did happen. Now, that voter fraud, however, seems to be very inconvenient to their cause because it's been perpetrated by Trump voters. In fact, just today, we have a story from the Daily Beast. 3 Republican residents of the Florida retirement haven, The Villages, have been charged with voter fraud. In fact, they cast multiple votes in the 2020 election. In fact, Click Orlando identified the 3 as Jake Ketchick, 63, Joan Halstead, 71, and John Ryder. Each of them have been charged with casting more than one ballot in the election, a crime that could land them in prison for as long as 5 years. Ketchick, allegedly voted by mail in Florida while also casting an absentee ballot in Michigan. Halstead is accused of voting in person in Florida and as an absentee ballot in New York. And Ryder apparently voted or allegedly voted in Florida and an unspecified out-of-state location. Oops. Ketchick and Halstead reportedly turned themselves into police, while Ryder is said to have been arrested at a Royal Caribbean cruise ship terminal in Port Canaveral. Because of course, Now, all three, you're going to be shocked to find out. I already gave it away. They're registered Republicans in Florida. And the two Facebook pages belonging to Ketchick and Halstead show a lot of posts supportive of President Donald Trump. But of course, they had to have voted for Biden, obviously. And then secret Biden supporters. Yes, yeah, because of the fraud, right? The fraud. No, we know where the fraud's coming from. The fraud isn't coming from Democrats. The fraud is coming from Trump supporters who are too deep into the cult. Too deep into the cult. And by the way, they did exactly what Trump wanted them to. He told them to vote twice. Vote twice. Just vote twice. Vote for me twice. There's lots of voter fraud, so we might as well just do voter fraud of our own. Except that there was no voter fraud on the Democratic side. But there's massive amounts of voter fraud. Well, I shouldn't say massive. But there are few instances of voter fraud on the right wing that have been caught. Because guess what? The system works. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.